Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today I'm going to do a follow-up video on the XPG Invader. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so today's video we're going to do a follow-up on the XPG Invader. Now this is from ADATA. XPG is their gaming range, part of the company, and the Invader is one of their new chassis which is on the market at the moment, which kindly they sent to me for review purposes, and I did the unboxing, went through all the specs and all that kind of stuff, and I did promise a follow-up video, and this is it. So we're going to go through things I would do differently, things I liked about the case, things I disliked about the case, and just a general look at the performance overall, how the filters work and all those kinds of things. Okay, so starting off first of all, obviously the build is completed, so the components we've got in here is a ASRock. There is a B450 Pro 4 motherboard in there. We've got 16 gigs of G.Skill Trident Z RAM. There's a MSI RX 480 8GB graphics card. We've got an SSD in the background, and also there is a Cooler Master AIO cooler, which is the Master Liquid Light 240, I believe it is. That is actually one of the things that I would have changed about this particular build. Putting an AIO in here at the front in the kind of specified area possibly isn't the best of ideas. Essentially, it would be better off mounting this top section to try and get some of the airflow going through the case rather than being all kind of in this area at the front. With the fans that come as standard, you get 2 fans with this included in the package. Ideally, obviously, one for the front, one for the rear. But in this case, because there's no filtration towards the back of the case, you do really need to keep some positive pressure in mind when you're building this, just to keep all the dust out. Now the dust filtration on the bottom and on the front and on the top is absolutely fantastic. I can't fault it at all. But even so, with all that filtration, because I've got the system set at the moment to sort of a passive or a kind of almost slightly negative air pressure, it has pulled in quite a lot of dust from that back section and it has gone all over the bottom, so the system does need a bit of a clean. So essentially what you want to try and do is create that positive pressure in the front, top and bottom if possible, to try and push the dust out the back if there's going to be any, and obviously because there's pressure going out, dust is going to find it difficult to come in apart from where these areas are filtered, so you should not get much dust in there at all. So let's go and look actually at some of the filters and see what job they've done. So the front section, this works really well because you've obviously got a solid front panel, which we'll take a look at here. So it's a solid front panel, so nothing's going to actually penetrate through that. It's only going to come in through the top and the bottom. Our next line of defense is the magnetic filter, which is removable. And if we take a look at this in a moment, you can see on the screen there is actually quite a lot of dust on there, some cat hairs and that kind of stuff. Now we do actually have 3 cats, 2 children, plus other people coming and going. There's a lot of stuff going on in this particular room where we do the unboxing, so there is a lot of dust and debris flying around all the time. But over the last month or so that we've been using this case, it's actually done pretty well. I haven't cleaned it at all yet. This is the first time I've actually looked at it, and it's actually not done too bad a job at all. The actual fans themselves, when we're looking in the front, and all this front section looks relatively dust free. There's a little bit on the bottom there which is accumulated, but overall the fans themselves, so I'll just stop the blades. Yeah, the blades are actually completely clean, so we've got no issues there. And again, these filters, you can just brush them off and the dust will come off quite easily. There's nothing really ingrained on there. You could use a vacuum or something if you wanted to, but just tapping that off and we can see now the dust that has accumulated. So not been too bad at all. Actually works out really well. So filtration wise for the front, can't fault it at all. Absolutely brilliant. The top section, I have actually cleaned off a little bit because I dusted the top off, but the top filter is essentially done very little work at all and is basically just kept stuff from falling on top of it. Again, there has been a slightly negative pressure, so I was expecting this to be a lot dirtier than it was, but it's actually come out really good. And the top section in general is really clean and crisp. Let's have a look at the filtration on the bottom. And as you can see, wow, that is picked up quite a lot there. So there's a lot of dust on the power supply intake. We've got virtually nothing here, which to be expected because we haven't got any fans in this particular area. And again, negative pressure, there's not really much you can get there. But yeah, as you can see, that has, that's caked on pretty well. Now, as you'd expect, this is actually in a computer desk, which is raised slightly off the floor. I'd imagine if this was on a carpet base or something, then you would expect a little bit more than that. Essentially, most cases, if you've got them in mounted on the floor, then ideally you don't want the carpet and all that all around this area to choke off your power supply. So if you are thinking of putting this on the floor, this is the wrong case for you. So we'll take this back panel off now and we'll spin it around 180 degrees and we'll take a look at the rear filtration. So at the moment, like I said, we've got the Cooler Master AIO in here. So this section here is filtered for coming out. Ideally, the fans would have been great to have been reversed, going the other way, pulling air in. But I was trying to avoid pulling too much hot air back into the case. Again, that is something that I would have probably done differently. So as you can possibly pick out there, you've got two relatively clear circle marks there of dust which has been filtered. So at the moment, these are the Cooler Master fans which are blowing outward. So that's taken a little bit of dust, which ideally it shouldn't be there because obviously you've got the front filtration. So this is dust which has been pulled in from the top and the back where it's been unfiltered at some point, and potentially some other areas which have small gaps. But it hasn't done too bad. It's not very dirty, but on the camera and certain lights, it does pick up. So again, this is one of the things that I would have done differently. The AIO would preferably be in the top, and this section here I would have fans pulling air in, using the filtration on there, using the filtration on the front to get more positive pressure to blow all the air through the system and clear it out quickly. Now this isn't an overly high performance system. I didn't mention actually the CPU. CPU is a Ryzen 7 1700. So it's not a massive kind of fireball processor, so there's not a great deal of heat being generated. The graphics card itself gets very limited use, so it's not getting very hot in this case. So we don't really need a massive amount of cooling, but we do need that extra positive pressure to try and get some of the dust out the back of the case. Now when it came to actually doing the build in this, I found it relatively straightforward. All the RGB or the addressable RGB wiring and the power cables and stuff tucked in down here very nicely, and even with all these fans and the radiator in this section, it still managed to do a pretty decent job. We still had some room to put in the SSD. There's another space there where we could have added another one. Again, nice place to put them. Quite handy if you haven't got an NVMe drive. That is really easy and really accessible. Should you need to make any changes, you don't have to go around fiddling around with the motherboard. You just take the back panel off and get involved with your hard drive. So that's a good thing. Cable management wise, again, I've done very limited cable management here. Most of it I've just tucked into place, and it's actually worked out pretty nicely. I don't think I actually used any cable ties at all. No, I didn't. I've just literally tucked the wires in, and it's actually remained relatively neat. I was quite impressed with how well the build actually went in this. Pretty straightforward. So let's go back round to the front, and I'll remove the side panel so we can have a slightly better look inside. The side panel actually is really good, even with the screws completely out. It doesn't want to fall out. These clamps at the bottom hold it in place nicely, and it still does take a little bit of persuasion to actually get the glass off. So looking inside again, we've got a little bit of dust here which is built up, which has been pulled in. There does seem to be more dust towards the back of the case, which indicates that it's coming in through these sections here. And I can feel that there, even with this graphics card, at the moment I'm just in BIOS because I've just got the hard drive disconnected currently, but I can just feel, because the graphics card is on and it's kind of like it is in BIOS mode, generally things are a little bit more active than they would be in standby. So I can feel there's a lot of heat in this area here already. I can feel there's very little airflow going through there. So again, this is one of the things I'm going to change. The Cooler Master cooler is going to come out, and I'm going to replace this with a Arctic Freezer 33, which I've got, the Esports Duo. I'm also going to be using a thermal pad as well, just to, I don't have to like change in all the compound every now and then. And this is Cat's machine, so I don't really want to have to disturb her to do any maintenance on it. So by putting one of those carbon pads in there, I can just set it and forget it. All it'll need is occasional dusting, but it should be pretty good. So overall, it's actually been a really nice case to work in. I have personally made a few mistakes on the build, which I completely acknowledge. The AIO in that position was a bad idea, and I thought at the time it was good because it covered up the holes that were there. It would have been nice if they'd have supplied us some sort of blanking plate actually in the kit, so if you didn't want to use this section, you could just put a blank over it and just forget it was there. Very similar to they did with the Sharkoon, the Night Shark case. That was a fantastic idea and worked out really well. I do find that with these kind of layout cases, if you've got nothing in this section here, it does look a little bit empty, so definitely something to consider, again, if you're doing a build yourself. But essentially it's been really good, very solid, very sturdy. I do love the RGB lighting, both on the front and the RGB strips I put in, which reflect quite nicely off the sides here. So that's all worked out really nicely. There's two addressable RGB strips, one which runs up this channel, one that runs up this channel. And I think it just gives the whole build quite a nice glow to it. Again, as you know, I do love my RGB, as you can see from the PC in the background as well. So it's worked out really nicely. Again, very, very limited things that I would change. A blanking plate for this AIO section. And yeah, that's about it really. Other than that, it's been a great case to work with. And I've just noticed one of the cables is a little bit loose there. Yeah, it's been really good. Really enjoyed it. The filtration, as it's shown, has worked pretty well. Can't really fault it. So there you go, that has been an update on the ADATA XPG Invader case. Overall, very happy. Can't really fault it. A few slight niggles with the way I've set it up. Again, it's not a problem with XPG. They've done a great job. It's just my implementation of what they've done hasn't worked out particularly well. But we're going to get rid of the IO, put in the Arctic cooler, and hopefully that's going to improve the airflow from the front, making it more positive, and hopefully it should remedy some of this dust coming in. So there you go, there has been an update on the XPG Invader. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.